Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jairus Days. Sven, we won something.
We sure did. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. We know that our listeners want us to get to the news, but stay tuned, as they say.
Do we tune into a podcast, Sven?
Technically, you download them, Jer. Although I guess if you're on Spotify, maybe you tune in.
But you know what? Let's just jump into this like my dogs hit the kiddie pool.
Especially today.
Here are some of the latest statewide coronavirus numbers and updates. As of late Tuesday, there were more than 55,000 cases statewide of coronavirus and 5,266 deaths. But the 24-hour number shows just 223 additional cases and 26 fatalities. These are among the lowest numbers since the start of the pandemic. In the city of Detroit, where the worst hotspot was with nearly 11,000 COVID-19 cases so far, there was just one death attributed to Tuesday. The 7-day trend was just 19 deaths, less than half of the deaths the week before. Now, officials are still saying it's important to social distance and wear masks, or else these numbers can change. The virus is still out there despite the nice weather. And Sven, it's going to be interesting to see in 1 or 2 weeks if there's any impact on cases from the holiday weekend where, look, lots of people were out and about. That's just the reality of the holiday weekend.
Well, I was telling you, Jer, when you and I socially distanced in your yard on Saturday night, and I told you on the way down that I saw a lot of people gathered at Palmer Park in the parking lot over there where you typically see crowds gathering, and they were not socially distancing, clearly.
Another note is that the state unveiled a neat new data dashboard that's publicly available. It's at mystartmap.info. That's M-I instead of my. You know how we do that in Michigan. And of course, I'll put a link in the show notes to it. The site is a project of the Michigan Departments of Health and Human Services and Labor and Economic Opportunity, as well as the University of Michigan. It's divided into recovery regions, and you can drill into the data by county. It visually represents publicly available case, death, and test data, and also analyzes it, and I find this cool, to determine overall level of risk and key trends. So it actually color codes each region of the state. That way you can easily see how much virus is in your community and whether it is increasing or decreasing. And I played around with it. It's very revealing. It's also, for the most part, very positive to see the trends in different regions, but it's definitely cool to see something that's so clean and visual instead of that coronavirus data scroll, Sven, that you and I have been staring at the last month plus, right?
Yeah, right.
Governor Whitmer may have urged Michigan residents not to head up north for the Memorial Day weekend, but North Shore dock owner Ted Dowker posted on Facebook, in a post that is no longer visible to the public, that the first gentleman asked if he can go to the front of the line since he's the governor's husband. This has become a bit of a controversy, as Republicans allege the governor's family is not doing as they tell the rest of the state to do. Whitmer and her husband own property near Elk Rapids. Whitmer responded at press briefing on Tuesday.
My husband made a failed attempt at humor last week when checking in with the small business that helps with our boat and dock up north. Knowing it wouldn't make a difference, he jokingly asked if being married to me might move him up in the queue. Obviously, with the motorized boating prohibition in our early days of COVID-19, he thought it might get a laugh. It didn't. And to be honest, I wasn't laughing either when it was relayed to me, because I knew how it would be perceived. He regrets it. I wish it wouldn't have happened. And that's really all we have to say about it.
Whitmer last week relaxed business and travel restrictions in northern Michigan, which has not been hit as hard by the coronavirus outbreak as here in Metro Detroit. It turns out former mayor and convicted felon Kwame Kilpatrick will not be getting out of jail early due to the coronavirus. A number of prisoners across the country have been let out early or are spending the rest of their sentence at home with electronic supervision due to the COVID-19 threat that has been racing through prisons and jails. So in a story we did not bring you because it seemed very suspect, the local internet was ablaze before the holiday because a nonprofit advocacy group called the Ebony Foundation sent out a press release claiming that Kilpatrick will be released early. That release was picked up by some local news outlets, and because Kilpatrick is always a lightning rod for attention, shared widely across social media. Then it doubled down, with ally of President Donald Trump and Detroit State Representative Karen Whitsitt saying that Trump said he'd be released. Kilpatrick has served 7 years of a 28-year corruption sentence at the federal prison in Oakdale, Louisiana. The problem with this story is that the facts weren't checked at first, and a press release by an interested party, a nonprofit who has championed Kilpatrick's release, was taken as gospel. Beyond being a single non-authoritative source, let's talk about the other issues. Usually, the prosecutors in a case like this would get a heads up. They did not. There wasn't a change on publicly available websites around Kilpatrick's incarceration status. Also, if it did happen, this would be for a home release program, not clemency. So it really isn't freeing Kilpatrick. Then, Tuesday, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons released a statement that they reviewed and denied Kilpatrick for the early release program. I will add here that there is a hot debate within the community if Kilpatrick is serving too long of a sentence compared to others for his crimes because he's a visible African American. Well, you know me, it takes a journalistic village sometimes to keep up with stuff, and I'm glad to point out folks doing strong work. So, if you're unfamiliar with the Kilpatrick saga and the background, and I know a number of listeners are, as it's now multiple years ago, a good series diving into this is the podcast Crime Town, and I'll link to that in the show notes. They spent a whole season here and talked to a number of local voices. Also, reporter ML Elric has had this beat for many years. He is now at the Freep and the Soul of Detroit podcast. The former head of the union representing DDOT bus drivers in Detroit is the latest high-profile Detroiter to die from COVID-19. Fred Westbrook Jr. retired last year after 6 years as the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 26. He spent 33 years with the Department of Transportation. Westbrook ran the union during a period when DDOT introduced expanded routes and service hours and hired additional drivers. In a statement on his passing, Mayor Mike Duggan credited Westbrook for much of the progress made in reforming DDOT and improving service and safety. He cited the establishment of a dedicated transit police force and installing video cameras on all buses as examples. I will just add here that as an occasional bus rider, things have gotten better. They're definitely not perfect yet, but they have gotten better, Sven, over the years.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think there's any arguing that.
Be better than the gap. Be better than the gap. Say it.
I'm better than the gap.
Two of Metro Detroit's largest indoor shopping malls announced plans to reopen to customers. Great Lakes Crossing Outlets and 12 Oaks Mall both said they plan to reopen Thursday at 11 a.m. and resume operations 7 days a week, albeit at reduced hours. Hours for additional stores and restaurants could vary. Both malls say they plan to implement a number of protocols and rules to minimize risk of infection. They include regular ongoing cleaning throughout the day, encouraging the use of masks, offering hand sanitizer stations, closing play areas, turning off drinking fountains, and removing furniture in common areas. Great Lakes and 12 Oaks both say they plan to be open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays.
So, Sven, you going to the mall?
Nope.
Some local projects and companies working on solutions for transportation challenges posed by the outbreak have won funding from the state of Michigan. Planet M is the state of Michigan's mobility initiative. It announced grants to 5 companies doing work here, totaling more than $280,000. The largest grant of $100,000 went to Gatik, a Silicon Valley company. It's working on a pilot with one of Michigan's largest retailers to deploy its autonomous delivery vehicles on predetermined fixed routes in both Grand Rapids and Rochester as a way to reduce person-to-person contact. The grant will reportedly result in new jobs and the opening of a facility in Michigan. Also winning grants were the following. Penske Vehicle Services, they're working with the city of Detroit and its transportation vendor to produce temporary clear vinyl safety partitions to separate bus drivers from passengers. It won $28,000, and $28,000 went to Plymouth-based RCO Engineering, which is also designing partitions to separate drivers and passengers. 2 other grants went to projects in West Michigan, including an autonomous disinfecting robot and a disinfection system using UV light for use in autonomous shuttles, both at Gerald R. Ford International Airport in Grand Rapids.
A new report puts Detroit in the top 15 best cities in the United States to launch your career. Detroit placed number 8 on the list from LinkedIn, which sought to rank cities for blending affordable housing with strong salaries for jobs for recent college graduates. Detroit ranked highly with a monthly median rent of nearly $1,200 and a median salary for starting jobs of nearly $64,000. The analysis by LinkedIn's economic graph team used home rental data from Zillow. Each of the cities filled more than 15,000 starter jobs from 2017 to 2019. St. Louis topped the list with a median monthly rent below $1,000 and a median starting salary of around $60,000. Milwaukee and Cleveland rounded out the top three. LinkedIn acknowledged that the analysis did not take into account the effects of the coronavirus pandemic on the career plans of new graduates. It said many people may be rethinking plans to make long-distance moves to other cities to find work.
You know, Sven, one of the things I like about this is that they talked about a real rent, because there is some old data out there of rental rates in the city and around that just, it really skews the numbers because it's old and it doesn't show where rental rates at. That $1,200 sounds about right. So it sounds like this will be a much better graph and report. Yelp has revealed the most popular unique delivery order in each state. This shows some food and drink favorites that aren't pizza, which is basically the most popular everywhere. So let's dive into it. Here in Michigan, it's bubble tea. And although I became a bubble tea fan just last year, I am excited about this, and it's making me want to do a pickup order or something, as I don't think there's too much bubble tea near me here in the North End. And I'm going to have to trek out to Ferndale, Sven. I'll be near your hood.
Come on by.
Interestingly enough, the state that shares in our passion for bubble tea is California. Other dishes that caught my eye around the country include Spam Musubi in Nevada, cheese pizza in Idaho, that's for you, Sven, because I know how you like cheese pizza, and boo buns in West Virginia, which I don't know what boo buns are, but now I want one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I traveled all the way from Detroit, Michigan to be with this man tonight, to honor this man tonight.
All right, as we promised at the top of the show, we won an award, Sven.
We're so special.
I know, so special. Actually, it came as a surprise to us. It's really great. It's for a collaboration with One Detroit at Public Television for, it's from the Society of Professional Journalists, and it's for automotive reporting on television, which is crazy, Sven.
I know, because last I checked, we do podcasts mostly.
Yeah, but you know what? That collaboration with Public TV has been great, and it's really cool to win an Excellence in Journalism award for this kind of work. And it was around Rivian, which is a project that we really covered. We really dove into Rivian way earlier than a lot of outlets who were mostly focused on the big three.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great surprise this was heading into the holiday weekend. You called me up and told me about this, and man, it made my weekend, Jer.
Thanks to Bill Kubota, Ed Moore for doing, great work over there at One Detroit and letting us play with them. And also a personal shout out to a mentor of mine, Marge Sorge, who was an automotive journalist for a very long time, who taught me just enough to be dangerous around that kind of stuff.
And that will do it for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you're hearing, you can become a member and help support what we do. Just go to patreon.com/dailydetroit. And you can commit to whatever level you are comfortable with, whatever you can afford. We know times are definitely tough these days, and there are a lot of people out there asking you for your hard-earned money. But if you find this podcast to provide value and maybe just brighten your day, then any little bit can help us keep it running.
Absolutely. And sitting right next to me are stacks of stickers and notes that are going out. I've started to make my way through them.
Awesome.
Writing them out, and then Sven, I'm going to send them over to your house in a little bit for you to sign them too.
Can't wait for that. With that, I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this together. Yelp has revealed the most popular unique delivery order in each state.
You are melting, dude.